so they don't wear clothes. The church is the church that is trying to provide education, particularly religious leaders. If you go to some communities, some of these cultural inhibitions we talk about, if a woman's husband is late, it means she's a widow. So these two incisors are forcefully taken out. So if you go to that community and you find a woman laughing without the two frontal teeth, it means she's a widow. And these are all practices that it's not as if she is disabled, but those practices make them even disabled. So the church is preaching and trying to see that these cultural practices are stopped. And one of the ways the church does that is through education and sensitization. That's why in lots of local communities, the church has primary schools, secondary schools, and sometimes even universities. So that from primary school, children are even educated to be aware that if someone is disabled, that doesn't mean the person is evil or that the person is representing some kind of a spiritual world that is just meant for ritual and all that. And I think that a lot has been done and a lot is ongoing. The question then is, how can government regulations and some kind of constitutional provisions that are available reach down to the local communities so that people are aware at the level of those local communities? And secondly, how can the government also step in to support initiatives and activities that are already being undertaken by churches, by mosques, by religious leaders, by certain civil society organizations? How can they be supported in such a way? And the final thing is that some of these practices are ongoing where perpetrators are not punished, sanctions are not being carried out. There's an immense culture of impunity where people do these things and nothing happens. Even at the level of, for example, women that are living, women that are disabled, but at the same time they suffer gender-based violence and nothing happens about it. So I think it's more about enforcing existing and extant laws that we have in this country.
Alright, it's still disability inclusion of the network service of Radio Nigeria. You can keep coming up with your calls. Our phone lines are open, and send a message to our live stream on Facebook at the Albino Foundation. The WhatsApp number is 0908 875 7496 0908 875 7496. So stay tuned as we come up with our news update. Yes, please. Sorry. Yes, so sorry. Since nobody has called me up.
Discrimination and induce accountability in their spaces. This is commemoration of the 2022 International Day of Persons with Disability. Under the CEO of the Albino Foundation, Ambassador Jacob Taylor, said the prize to achieve disability inclusive Nigeria is a peculiar task.
We talk after the news. We talk after the please see how you can get this or that one. Where we should play music. Follow-up questions. You are in number 3 now. I don't have any problem with your following up questions. What I want to still have to let you. Yes, I've told you. After this one now, we'll play music and play it into the 30th minute. So when we come on the other end of the they are not we are not getting any calls. So if by 30th minute we are not getting calls, we may not bother. We'll still be announcing, but we won't wait for them. I'll go through for this for us to play. Now, yeah. Just speak Igbo. Come. She's taking the star of the week. No, it wasn't recorded. We couldn't get our people to. I couldn't get the crew members to. So she will introduce you. Designed to sensitize and create awareness among IDPs on their rights and need to participate in politics and the electoral process by
coming out to vote and be voted on, thereby increasing the number of IDPs who will vote in the upcoming general election in 2023 and subsequent second elections. In a release, Mr. Felix also called for stringent punishment of heads of NDAs and private sectors that fail to implement policies that provide for full integration of persons with disability into the society. Calls on civil society organizations, including the media, to always remember that they remain a role of persons with disability in eradicating discrimination. The Federal Ministry of Education has inaugurated a committee on the review of the National Inclusive Education Policy to guarantee education for all. Speaking at the event, Mr.
So sometimes you actually have calls, people are calling.
I know.
Uh,
It means they don't find it.
no, really. Sometimes there is like a network problem.
Those challenges
Network problem. But let me go to
said
my
if we write education for all must
First
all
instruction.
irrespective of disability, gender, gift, or other characteristics, must have equal access to quality education. I think all members of the committee to put in their best towards producing a policy that will last and be used as a reference point by other countries. Mr. Abioye Adeleye, Director of Education Planning Research and Development and Chairman of the committee, said they will put in their best to meet up with the obligation. Kano State Governor Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje has said that the Kano State Persons with Disability Amendment Law will pave way for the inclusion and development of people with disabilities in the state. He made this known to Newsman shortly after his access in Kano. Further, Kano State Council has sent passed the PWD Amendment Law on 16th November 2022. A new law provides for the establishment of a ministry to oversee the affairs of PWDs in addition to the allocation of 2% all employment opportunities to the physically impaired, visually impaired, hearing and speech impaired, spinal cord injury patients, Down syndrome patients, and leprosy victims. The campaign, which educates persons with disabilities on reducing voters' apathy to the various minimum ahead of the 2023 election, is the sixth series and was held at Imperial Hall in Lagos State. It is in tandem with the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act signed by President Muhammadu Buhari in 2019. Also, Section 54 of the Electoral Act supports and empowers persons with disabilities to participate in the electioneering process in the country. The Abilo Foundation is being supported by the European Union SDGN2 program. The event was attended by several stakeholders, including the Administrative Secretary, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Lagos State, and the chairman of Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, Jonathan, Osun State, Mr. Stephen Olorunfemi, and head of the department, Broadcast Education and Publicity, INEC, Lagos, Adenike Adeshi, the head of INEC PWD's desk, Abuja, Daily Good News, the executive director of Disability Awareness and Development Initiative, Where Akinola, and the founder, We Play Paradigm, Dr. Bola Kofi. In his welcome remarks, Ambassador Jacob Bello, Chief Executive Officer of the Apollo Foundation, noted that the objective of the seminar was to integrate PWDs with the electoral officers and other stakeholders for information that will broaden their knowledge of their responsibilities during elections. The resident electoral commissioner of Lagos State, Mr. Olusegun Agbaje, who was represented by the administrative secretary, INEC, Adebiyi Ajayi, while giving his goodwill message, said the election umpire is committed to the inclusivity of PWDs in the coming elections. Mrs. Adenike Adeshi, the head of the Department of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC, Lagos, in her keynote address, urged the PWDs to do their part and exercise their daily duties. The national head of INEC, PWD desk, while speaking on voting requirements and procedures for the voting process in the 3 years, urged PWDs to follow the guidelines stipulated by
Stand Strong by Davido is still visibility inclusion on the network service of Radio Nigeria. The phone lines are still open for you to place a call. We are talking about the role of religious leaders in entrenching the inclusivity of persons with disabilities. Okay, maybe topic is too long to understand. What we mean is, what do you think are the roles of religious leaders in disability inclusion? And of course, when we talk about disability inclusion, we are talking about persons with disability and making sure that they are entrenched or they are together with us, not excluded, not discriminated upon, and not stigmatized, not stereotyped. And everything that we do, they are able to do it now, as a member of the society because they are. And today is International Day of Persons with Disability. What better way to talk about them if not today? And we have Reverend Father Atta Barkindo, the Executive Director of the Kuka Center. Thank you for staying with us, sir, on the program.
Thank you.
All right, now, what kind of support are religious organizations expected to provide for persons with disabilities?
I just worry that at the moment, just like the executive director of the Albino Foundation mentioned there on the news item, they are seen mostly like also like IDPs, although they live in society with us. So they are seen as just people who should benefit from handouts, for example, relief materials during Christmas. Can you call them together, give them bags of salt, wrapper, some measures of beans and rice and soap and but I think for me the role of the church should just be beyond providing this temporary relief. They should really look at their capacities in terms of education, in terms of economic involvement, in terms of political participation, even in terms of training on computer, on IT, on technology. A lot of them can do so much that will not only benefit them in terms of social and economic recovery, but also contribute to the development and growth of the society. So there's so much they can do. And I think for me, the role of the church then and even religious bodies must go beyond this providing these temporary relief materials, but to look at them, what kind of quality education can we provide? What type of skills can we provide? What type of capacities can we provide? And I think if we do that, it will go a long way. Sometimes by the roadside, you see a person who's actually disabled, but can be a very good mechanic. So how can you train that person in terms of technology and even engineering? You understand? He can give a very good advice in terms of maybe architectural advice. How can you provide that educational training? And therefore, what is expected then is that those educational facilities will now have to be constructed in such a way that people that are persons who are disabled can really be accommodated in those facilities and be provided with the necessary tools and education that they need in such a way that they can live normal lives, marry, have children, and then contribute not just their families but also to the community.
Okay, now in each parish or diocese, is there like a record you will have? Do you know the number of persons with disability now in your churches? Because if you are talking about some of these things, there needs to be like a record. Okay, you are providing scholarship for so and so amount of persons, and this section of the receivers of the scholarship are going for persons with disability. Do you have like a record?
I'm a Catholic priest. I can't speak for every Christian denomination, but the Catholic Church, we have what they call the JDPCs, Justice, Development, and Peace Commission, in every Catholic diocese. And there is an executive secretary or a coordinator for those commissions. And those commissions are responsible for documenting and providing the necessary skills that persons with disability will require. And I think that in the last 10 years, that has grown substantially, in the Catholic Church, to an extent that even when the priest is now preaching, you find an interpreter with the hindsight is providing that. There are even schools. If you go to some dioceses, there are schools that have been established for persons with disability, particularly, for example, schools for the deaf and the dumb, so that they can actually read and write and have access to education and become employable in the society. And there are computer centers and computer training programs that are even being provided for persons with disability. So I think the Catholic Church has done honestly very well, and it can be better as far as the resources are available and the facilities are available. I think it can do better. And maybe I've seen even on TV and on other social media platforms where even other Christian denominations are gradually taking that in and providing. Like today, I was at the Catholic University, Veritas in Buari, where they had their 2022 convocation lecture. And it started with a Catholic mass, a Catholic service. And I could see one or two of the altar servants who serve the priest on the altar. He's actually disabled, but he was able to serve us normally, like the other person. So, and I think that the only thing we can do is how to support these initiatives to grow and to improve. But I see that happening, and I think the more people become aware and people are sensitized, and I think the more inclusivity will be achieved.
Yes. All right. Now, how can civil society organizations and faith-based organizations work together to ensure that religious structures in Nigeria are accessible, to persons with disabilities?
I think what I can say for civil society organizations is that civil society organizations have different mandates and different objectives. Some are purely into peace building, others are into gender issues. Others are maybe simply into seeing how we can support, agricultural or environmental issues. But I think what is happening is that in every civil society organization now, the issue of inclusivity as a policy has to be included for every single civil society organization and even faith-based organization. For the simple fact is that it doesn't matter your mandate, it doesn't matter your objective, as long as you want to implement them, you are highly likely going to come across persons with disability who are going to be your beneficiaries. You are going to come across men, women, young people, children who will likely be beneficiaries of your program. And that is why every civil society organization must therefore have a comprehensive inclusivity policy. So that when you come across people who are persons with disability, you are able to include them literally into your program. And you don't even have to wait till you come across them. You have to be intentional. You have to be deliberate to include them in your program so that they can become, our beneficiaries. So I think that this is the first thing civil society organizations must do. And so, irrespective of the mandate and the program, components must be created for people or persons with disability. So a lot has been done and a lot is ongoing. And I know some of the civil society organizations and faith-based organizations that I know, there are persons with disability that are working for them. And they seem to be doing very well.
Okay, this seems okay. That's good to know. All right, 0908 That's the number to send your WhatsApp messages to, or 0705 Those are the numbers to call. We are talking about the role of religious leaders in disability inclusion, and we are with Reverend Father Atta Barkindo, the Executive Director of the Kuka Center. What is expected of people with different disabilities within the religious space, and how can that be compared with what is expected of other members without disability? How do you merge this?
I think for us in the Catholic Church, even as priests and sisters, reverend sisters, and pastors, there are some of us that have challenges with our ability. I know there are priests that have one leg, other is amputated, another one hand. They are still appointed parish priests. They are still made to be in charge. They are still able to do their work with support of their colleagues, support of the church's authority. And I think we don't have much problem, in that regard. And there are provisions where, in cases that they are not able to, for example, transport themselves to local churches or to local parishes, they are provided with those facilities that can make them rich. And I don't want to sound immodest, but I think that they also symbolically, become an example to members of the church who are persons with disability. That if father or the pastor or the sister is disabled and can achieve that, why not? I can also achieve, my own dreams and the ambitions that I have. So when they do their work, they are also symbols and examples of inspiration to members of the church. And I think that that symbolic inspiration is very critical and very important, because within the social and economic condition that is called Nigeria and what we are experiencing in this country, it's very easy for even normal human beings, people who are able to give up, to become hopeless. Talk less of those are persons with disability. And for us as a church and as religious groups, the commodity we sell is hope. And for us, hope is never in recession. So symbolically serving as a source of inspiration, I think is critical and is very important.
Thank you so much. All right, we go on a quick break now, but just a reminder that the program is still Disability Inclusion on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We're still going to take some more segments, and of course, we're still going to have our guests, answer some of our questions that we have very shortly. But before then, stay with us. It's still the network service of Radio Nigeria. Hi, it's still the network service of Radio Nigeria, and the program is still Disability Inclusion. My name is Jennifer Ogo. Now, here are some things to know about the 2018 Disability Act. So it is prohibited according to the law to discriminate against people with disabilities within the public transportation facilities. The public transportation service providers are to make provisions for physically, visually, and hearing impaired and all persons howsoever challenged. These applies to seaports, railways, and airport facilities. The Act prohibits persons who provide goods and services from discriminating against disabled persons by refusing to provide those goods and services, or by providing such goods and services in a different manner or on different terms and conditions than they would otherwise provide to other persons and are afforded a 5-year transition period to comply. If you don't know now, you know. Thanks for staying tuned on the program Disability Inclusion. And Lynn is standing by to let us know who the star of the week is. Good evening, Lynn.
Good evening, Jennifer. How are you? Good evening, Jennifer.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you too. And the star of the week is Anthony Olarewaju Awutoye, born into an impoverished family, polygamous family with an enormous lump on his chest, a bad health condition, no doubt, and being paralyzed as a child. Anthony Awutoye, popularly known as Tony Tetwila, is a proof that a man's beginning does not necessarily determine his future. This Oro Kwara State-born recording artist and songwriter is widely regarded as one of Nigeria's living hip-hop legends, and in his words, owes his success and life to God and his mother's love, bravery, selflessness, and prayers. He started walking, but his legs are not perfectly balanced. What is your excuse for giving up? Be inspired. Say no to defeat in life.
All right, many thanks, Lynn. It's still Disability Inclusion Network Service of Radio Nigeria. I will still have a Reverend Father Rakido with us in the studio live, and we'd like to, take some messages from you. If you're having troubles reaching us, kindly send a WhatsApp message or just go to Facebook. We are streaming, and then drop in a comment on the live video. All right, sir. I would like to know, what do you think might pose a challenge in integrating disability inclusion messages within religious organization, and how can it be handled?
I think for me, the biggest challenge is the cultural perception that most of our members of the congregation still carry with them. So we need to carry out lots and lots of sensitization and awareness creation. And the second challenge is for me, how do you enforce these laws? The law is very general. It says don't discriminate against persons with disability. If I'm running an organization and I employ 10 people and none of them is a person with disability, I mean, I'm not discriminating. The law didn't say if you are employing 10, you must employ 2. So that if you don't employ out of the 10, if 2 are not persons with disability, then I'm violating the law. But the law simply says I should not discriminate. So it is open, it is general. And I think for me, this is a challenge. So for example, CSOs are meant to pay taxes. Workers are meant to pay tax by law. And they tell you the percentage to pay. So in that way, the law is specific, the law is very clear. But if the law says don't discriminate, but the law does not tell me the exact number of persons living with disability that I must employ out of the 10 or the 15 I employ in my organization. It means that if I don't employ any, I'm still not. So what does it actually mean not to discriminate? That has to be broken down, that has to be very specific. And I think for me, that can also be a challenge because people can keep employing as long as you don't directly engage with a person with disability and you don't maybe verbally abuse him or insult him or verbally reject him. It's like you are absolutely not discriminating. Except there's a situation where you have a direct involvement and a direct engagement, and in that process you discriminate, then there's discrimination. But when you completely avoid and there is no direct engagement, then you may not likely be discriminating because you haven't even met that person in the first place. So I think that the law needs to be much more specific in the way and manner that it can be, take away any lack of clarity.
Okay, now let's talk about some, the outreach program workshop. Do you people have like a disability inclusion outreach program workshop that you carry out, for the congregants? If you do, kindly enlighten us.
Absolutely, we do. For example, certain parishes have outreach programs for youth or for Boy Scouts or for Girls Guides, and we make sure that persons with disability are involved, in some of these programs. There are parishes that provide masses and church services on Sundays to schools for deaf and dumb. So when I was in the seminary, for example, we were trained on the sign language, and there are priests that were specifically trained so that they can come out and provide services. And when they are conducting outreaches, we have particular priests who can use the sign language, to communicate with those people. And secondly, when we are carrying out workshop and sensitization, particularly by the JDPCs, for congregants or parishioners to get involved in politics. Special outreach is provided for persons with disability, for women, for minority groups, to make sure that they participate actively, in some of these political processes. So there are lots and lots that are ongoing, but as I said, these things can be amplified, they can be cascaded down to local, communities, as long as resource mobilization is effective and those resources are available.
All right. I would like to get your opinion on this. This is something that I think is quite, I wouldn't say common, but it's almost impossible that you won't, see it in the church. Now, is the attitude of congregants towards a person with disability, or towards a person with disability. How can the congregant embrace a person with disability and not see them as an object of pity? For example, a person with disability comes to church on a wheelchair and begins to think that that person came for healing of or he or she came for some form of deliverance. How do we change this perception towards persons with disabilities?
That is why I told you that we have a lot to do, especially as religious leaders. And it's not just church. Just go on a Friday, go to the mosque, or on a Sunday, you go to the mosque. You find persons with disability sitting at the gates. They don't enter in to be part of the worship. They sit at the gate, they become literally beggars. So there are serious social and economic conditions beyond the cultural perception and the social mentality of our people. So it is not just about the religious leaders, but it's also from the families, from where these people, are coming from. You only come to church or a mosque on a Sunday or a Friday, but substantial amount of your time is spent with your family members. So how do you, see these people even at the level of the family? So I think for me, it's continuous awareness on programs of this nature, continuous awareness on churches and mosques, outreaches to communities, to local people, but also talking to family members to see that these people have dignity, they are human beings like us, they must be recognized and be given all the opportunities that they need, to develop the biggest potentials that God has given to them. And there is nothing we can do other than to continue with some of these conversations that we are having.
Okay, so what's your message now to the disability community?
First of all, I don't like the word disability community.
Okay.
It makes it look like they are a separate community from us. We are all one.
Okay.
We are all human.
Okay.
We are all human beings. There are persons living among us. We are one community. Yeah. We are living together. Okay. And I think my message to them is that please don't give up. Don't allow anyone to discourage you. Don't allow anyone to see you only as a beneficiary of a handout or something that can be given. You are embedded with substantial amount of potential that God has given to you. The sky can only be your beginning. Have the courage, have the hope that you can achieve the best. We are one community, one big human family, and we must be seen as that. For me, there are not two communities. Okay. There are only one human community.
All right, so what should we be looking forward to, from the church in terms of promoting disability inclusion?
I think that I want to see the church, not just Catholic Church, Anglican, Methodist, but the entire Christian community and the entire religious body.
Okay.
Please increase, our awareness creation, our sensitization, and our acceptance of persons with disability. They are brothers and sisters. They are one simple human community like us.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for honoring our invitation to the program Disability Inclusion. So far, we've been listening to Reverend Father Atta Barkindo, the Executive Director of the Kuka Center. For those of you who tried to reach us and you were unable to, we sincerely apologize. This program comes your way every Saturday at 7 p.m. West African time. That's it today on the program Disability Inclusion, which came to you live from the network service of Radio Nigeria. Now, for more information on the activities of the Albino Foundation, visit our website at www.albinofoundation.org or send a message to 0703 1103773 or 0701 9773352. The engineer on duty was led by Debo Adiriola and Hassan Usman. The studio manager has been Abdulmumin Seidu and Mohammed Abdullahi. We sincerely appreciate you. All right, this program is powered by the European Union and the Albino Foundation. A special thanks to the producer, Steven Isabo. Until next time, my name is Jennifer Obo. Urging you to have a splendid weekend. Bye for now.
Thank you, Jennifer. I almost broke my case. You should change this thing. It's like one for the
It's
soul.
for helicopter. I don't know why they brought it to the studio.
Is that the Igbo or
No, the other side. The
from what?
no, Agna. Yeah, close to WhatsApp.
Lina can go now.
Yes, after you picture. Take a photo.
You these people with your plan. Tell Jake I came. So this is your program. I've been here before. This is my first time of meeting you.
Yes, we have a lot of presenters. A lot of us here.
You study journalism?
No, I studied tourism and archaeology, but I've been here for a couple of years, like 7, 8 years.
Wow. Thank you, Mom.
Hello.